Howdy, everyone. Tad Stevens on the Micro Success Secrets podcast, where we focus on business, psychology, and marketing, and how you can use that in your business daily and long term. Today, I'm talking with Rich Parsons, who applies nearly 30 years of leadership expertise in the military and civilian sectors to develop entrepreneurs and business professionals to show up at their very best every single day. Rich helps clients get unstuck and stop hitting walls that prevent their ability to accelerate progress towards their goals. Rich, how are you? And if I missed anything, please take a minute and let our listeners know.
Hey, Chad, thanks for the opportunity to jump on your podcast. I know we've been in conversation just over the past year or so for a variety of things, and I'm happy to see your growth in your business, and I'm happy to be here with your audience. So, as you mentioned, I help people get unstuck and to accelerate their growth and their progress, because I believe that people need to show up at their very best every single day, because when they don't, they're not only robbing themselves, they're robbing other people of what they really need, what they're expecting. So I help people get clarity around their mindset and around their business so that they can function more effectively and impact and influence the people that they want to be in front of and the people that they have to interact with. And I think this is a great opportunity to share that message on your podcast today. So thank you very much again for the invite.
You're very welcome, and that sounds great. In fact, that really rolls into the first question I had was, it's my belief that we are a combination of all of our experiences. That's the way I look at things. And, so this is kind of a rhetorical question for me and for a lot of people, but there are certain points in your life where if you could change a decision, then there are a few in mind. I mean, the one that springs to my mind is when I was 13 and I decided not to play pony baseball. To this day, I use that as that would have been fun. I wanted to do that and I didn't. So that is something I would have done different. But it can be something small, it can be something big. Is there anything that you've come across that if you could change just one thing, that you would do that?
Well, that's a really fitting question. I was just kind of talking with somebody the other day about some of my experiences in life. And, I think back to my military career, and one of the things that I wish I would have done sooner in my life was really get my act together. Because I found that,
yes, me too.
I joined the military late. I turned, I think, 22 when I was in basic training, which is a little later than what people typically go in. And it was good that I waited, because had I joined when I was first going to at 19, I don't think I would have made it in the service until the age of 22, because I was just a punk. I didn't have things figured out yet. And honestly, when I joined the military, the version of me then was still kind of sketchy, and I wasn't having the best career starting off with. But fortunately, I got things squared away. But it took me about, probably 4 years, maybe 3.5 years in the service to really get things kind of figured out a little bit. And that came through the help of a mentor of mine that I met, and he became a mentor later in life. I met him during my first professional military education course called Airman Leadership School. And in that, I found out what it was to be a leader. I found out what it meant to be a good follower and to just really be the person that I wanted to be. And so if I had to change anything, it would be getting my act together a little earlier. But I don't mind, now that I look back, I don't mind that I learned the lessons that I did, because that allowed me, as I progressed through my career and even after retirement, it allowed me to have a better perspective on what young people were facing, on what human beings faced in life, getting through challenges and overcoming adversity and having mindset shifts and so many things that I learned. Those were valuable lessons. I learned it the hard way. So my goal and my purpose now is to help people not learn it quite so difficult as I did. I want to be able to help them jump past some of those obstacles and hurdles and get past them in a more effective manner than I did. And that's so good lessons, but it was tough in the beginning. So I wish I would have got things figured out a little sooner than I did.
Mm-hmm. And me as well, which rolls into my next question is there a business or life decision that you did make that turned out super positive? Something, you know, like everything was one way before you did it and another way after you did it, and you remember that.
Right. Well, I tell you, probably one of and there's a couple that come to mind. One of them was my decision to become an instructor in the military. That opened, I became an instructor for the very course that kind of was a light that turned the light bulb on for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was in that time where I struggled with some self-doubt and some, limiting beliefs and all that, because I didn't think, because I was not so great of an airman, that I would be that good or that I would be able to really share or help other people grow and develop. But what I found is that that's exactly what I was able to do. I was able to use my life experiences to help people. And then with that decision to move forward on that, what that did is it opened up so many doors for me. As an instructor, I went to a different location to help set up and recertify a school and train some instructors to be accredited, to be able to do their job and do it well. I went to Iraq, and I was one of the first time that professional military education instructors went into a combat zone to train people. I trained the Iraqi army and helped get their own training battalion established, working with all the services to do that. And so had I not been in that position, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to meet people and to learn and grow, which later on in my career, it was those things that allowed me to be successful, become an instructor of the year for the Air Force, and to promote and to get into positions that allowed me to impact and influence more people. And as I retired, I'll say that was probably my second best decision, and that was retiring from the Air Force. Not because I didn't love the Air Force, but because I knew that my time was there, that I knew that had I continued to plug on, and I could have done it, but I would not have done it to the best of my ability. I would not have been the best me going into those next 3 years. And I knew that about myself, but it took a lot of conversations with people that I trusted to help me make that decision and to run down the pros and the cons. And I wrote down everything, and, I had the pluses and minuses. And at the end of the day, my wife and I prayed about it, and we decided that, what, we really felt that this is where God was leading us to go. And so I retired, and it was one of the best decisions I made because my energy came back. I was able to fulfill my passion to open my own business, Higher Calling Consulting, and to start training and teaching and coaching people to be their very best. So I had to live what I teach, and what I counsel and coach people on is being their best self and getting out of their own way sometimes to do that. So those were really two pivotal decisions in my life. One reaped many benefits in my military career, and one has reaped benefits after my military career.
Yeah. And I want to point out or bring up for me, and so the listeners will hear this, because this I've heard time and time again from different people. And I think the first person I heard it from was Bruce Lee, or a martial artist of some kind. And they said that you never really become a master until you teach. To be a master at anything, you have to teach. There is no other way around it. Yeah, and I thought, well, and then, after I've done it for a while, I say, yeah, I see it now. So that I've experienced myself, I think is super. Which rolls into my next question. This is just rolling along, but it really is. you know, a lot of people get to those points, like the second one, the second story you told, where, you know, from what I heard, it was time for you. It was time to make that change. And people get stuck, you know, the before, where you were before, they get stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
They, for whatever reason. Do you have anything that you do? I mean, you mentioned some of the things. You made the list, you prayed about it, you talked to your wife, you talked to people you trusted, you did all those things. Is there any like methodology that you have now that you could suggest to people that you do or they could do to get them
Right.
past those kind of stuck places?
Yeah. So one of the things that I find to be very beneficial in not only for myself, but coaching other people, and I'm sure you've heard it, whether you've listened to, you know, Dean Graziosi or Tony Robbins or Gary Vee or Brenda Burchard, any number of people. I mean, Amy Porterfield, there's just so many of the gurus that talk
Mm-hmm.
about this, that getting unstuck, oftentimes you have to do an inventory like I did, but you do an inventory, but not only do you do an inventory of right now, do that future look. You know, it's often said,
Yeah.
look 12 months from now, look 6 months from now. What would your life be like if you were in the position you're in right now moving forward? And what would your life be like out of that position doing something else, maybe something that really fulfills you and drives you and uses your passions and your purpose? Look forward 12 months, look back on your life, and what would have happened over those 12 months? What would life
Mm-hmm.
be like at that point, a year from now, 6 months from now, that would be different? That would you still be the same? Would you still feel stuck? Would you still feel unfulfilled? Would you feel as though you're just going through the motions? And I tell you what, when people can realize that they don't just have to go through the motions, they can be the master of their life. And that's not in a conceited way or any void of any other higher calling or guidance in your life. It's just that we all have decisions to make. You have to be comfortable with where you're at. And if you're not, you've got to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And to get unstuck, first off, you have to realize that you are stuck. You have to realize that you're in a place that you don't like to be. And I've heard it referred to by some others, and that you're in a velvet rut. You know, the rut is comfortable, but you're in a rut.
Mm-hmm.
And as you
That
go
is a great.
along, it made, and I think it was John Livesay that mentioned that in his training, but you're not in a good place, because no matter how you look at it, you've got a hill on either side of you. And until you make a decision to jump over that and to see what's outside of that, because the longer you stay in a rut, the longer you get stuck, the more
Mm-hmm.
that those sides grow. Those barriers become taller, because then you feel like you can't get out.
Yeah.
So had I stayed in the military for another 3 years, I looked down the road. I knew what was ahead of me. The position that I would have been going into had I stayed in, it wasn't a bad position at all. It was actually a really good step up in my career progression, but it wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
Had I had that position 2 years prior, it would have been perfect. I would have been in that job and I would have had advancement out of that. But I wasn't going to finish my 3 years in the service doing that particular job. That's not where I wanted to be in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to realize what my future looked like and whether that was what I wanted to do. And mentioned about talking to people, and I'll share this real quick and then move on, is when I was doing my own evaluation of what I wanted to do, and I had people around me retiring. You know, I made it to the top 1% of the enlisted force. I couldn't promote any higher, so it was all just positions at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to talk to people that were in the same boat that I was, and said, you know, many of them were at 27, 26, 28 years. And I said, hey, I got to ask you, what helped you make this decision? And one of the individuals I spoke with, she said, I don't think I'd have the energy to do another 3 years. I wouldn't be able to give my best. And I heard that from her, and I heard it from several other people that said it was time. I didn't have the energy. I didn't want to gyp the people that I'd be responsible for leading by not being my very best. So that was a big decision point for me to get out of where I was at to move forward. And I pushed the button to retire on the last possible day that I could have done it because I wanted to make sure it was the right decision.
You took the time.
A very short 4-month retirement, and it went really well. And I tell you, I haven't looked back. It was the best decision I've made. And I encourage people to, when they're ready, to come on over to the other side because life's good. But you got to be comfortable with that, and you got to know what you're going to do.
Yeah. Sounds great. Okay. Last question is, if you had to start over from scratch, and I'm going to kind of move this into just your coaching, where you are now, and if you want to bring in the military part of it too, but if you had to start over, well, no, I did answer it however you want it, because some people that are listening to this may be in the military. They may be in a similar situation. They may want to hear. So whatever you would have done different if you started over, what would you do?
Yeah. So I'll say that my experiences in the military have helped shape what I do now. So I'm able to do things now that is a product of what I've done in the past. So what I would do differently is, I tell you, when I first started off, so I became certified as a John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach last year. That was a dream of mine for years. And I finally started my plan. I couldn't pay it all up front, so I had to do a payment plan. But that was a decision that I wanted to do for the longest time, and I'm glad I did it.
Congratulations on that, because I know that's a big deal.
Thank you. Now, what I would have done differently after that is I started getting immersed into the John Maxwell team and all their curriculum and everything that I have to offer out of that. And then all of a sudden, the shiny object syndrome set in.
Oh, no.
And I started, because I wanted to grow and learn so much, I got distracted.
Right.
And when I got distracted, it pulled me away from what I really felt that I was meant to do. I started looking at other things that would be a business idea and getting pulled off to the left and pulled off to the right. And what it ended up doing was actually setting me back, because it took me away from my focus. So if I had to do anything different in the beginning of my business, one, I would have learned how to set up landing pages sooner. But instead of paying a ton of money for a website that I just really now just set up landing pages on, I would have been more focused and intentional on exactly what it was that I wanted to do, so that the shiny objects were blurry versus extremely shiny. Now, I learned a lot from those things, and I'm able to use that now. So I look back on it and I'm like, well, there was some good that came out of that. But what it's done is it set me back a little bit. And now I'm at a point where I'm getting really focused back down on what I want to do, how I want to help and serve people. And I'm using those other things to benefit me, but it definitely was a challenge. So focus in the beginning and having a better idea of how to set up landing pages and do some of the technical stuff.
The focus is huge. I mean, I can attest to that myself, and not trying to make a joke or anything, but learning how to set up a landing page is important. If you're going to be online, I mean, it's a really valuable skill, and it's not hard. You just got to go through it and do it. But anyway, so really appreciate all that. I mean, that is great advice. Loved everything. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk with me today on the show. Is there anything else that that you think the listeners might benefit from, that you do, that you offer, that you want to mention?
Yeah, sure. So what I like to offer to anybody that I come in contact with, I'm in front of an audience, is I like to offer several things. One of them is a free discovery or clarity call to help people figure out, their mindset, walk through some challenges or whatever it is they're facing, or whether it's in their personal life or in business, giving business clarity or mindset clarity. I also will offer people a preview of my new book. It's an ebook that's coming out. I haven't published it or anything yet. It's called M is for Mindset. And you get a short preview of that goes through a framework that I have created. It's called the 3 R's to a Renewed Mind. And that is the framework for the entire book. And it's also a framework for a course that I developed. And then the last thing that I'll offer people is a success defined worksheet. And what this worksheet does is, as you know, Tad, we can't define success based off of other people's opinions or definition of success. We have to define it for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So this worksheet helps you look at what it is you're wanting to do, your goal, your objective, and then what is success and what does that look like for you? And then walking down a series of questions to get to the bottom line of, why is it important for you to be successful at that particular time in what it is that you're doing? Because when you get to the why, you can move forward with a lot more effectiveness. So those are Absolutely. 3 things I'd like to offer to folks that want to connect with me.
Super. And if everybody will look there, they will be posted right below the link to this podcast recording. So really super. Again, thank you very much for your time. Thank everybody for listening in. Have a safe and productive week and be the very best you can at whatever you are. Until next time, excuse me, this is Tad Stevens, Micro Success Secrets. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.